Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. It is 16 after 9 o'clock. Welcome back to the second hour of news and views right here on Salam Media. And it's also a huge welcome to our listeners in Polokwane on One Nation FM. Thank you for joining us. Do hope you're going to enjoy the second half of the show this morning with me, Julie Ali. Next, we will be talking with Ganief Hendricks, president of Al Jama-ah, regarding the call by the Royal House of Mandela regarding the ban on alcohol in wake of the Enyobeni tragedy. It goes on to say that the deaths of the teenagers is not an isolated case and decisive action must be taken to save lives. Assalamu alaikum to you, Ganief. Welcome to the program.
Alaikum salam and shukran. Thank you very much.
Thank you indeed for weighing in on this very important matter. Do you think that this call will be taken seriously, given that a lot of communities would suggest that banning alcohol, possibly totally, is going to impact on their livelihoods?
Yeah, look, that argument will be used because millions of South Africans depend on selling alcohol either directly or in their businesses. And there will certainly be an outcry from them that it will harm their livelihoods. However, during COVID, when the sale of alcohol was banned, it saved a lot of lives. And so one can use the argument that what is more important, livelihoods or lives? So the call by the Royal House of Mandela um, will not get wide support, but it's a necessary call so that we move away from wine making, especially in the Western Cape, where we used to have the Dopp system, and farm workers were paid in kind. In other words, they were paid with bottles of wine instead
Mm,
of a salary. In the Western Cape as well, we have dry areas where alcohol cannot be sold. For example, in Fischhoek and in Pinelands, where I live, there won't be any taverns and there won't be licenses issued for any bottle stores. So I
What,
would imagine that,
Hanif, can I interrupt you
that
there? Why are there certain areas in the Western Cape designated or classified as dry areas? Is that because people have objected to having liquor stores and taverns in their areas, or is there another reason for that?
look, the reason is that it is included in the title deeds when these, let's call it townships, started to develop and part of the town planning process. So whoever called the shots, maybe owners of the land, they were prepared to sell the land to municipalities or to other developers, but put a clause in the title in the title deed. So that I think was individual choice by the owners of the land at the time, and that's why Fischhoek and Pinelands and a few other areas are called dry areas. So the Minister of Police also raised the concern that there is national legislation limiting the sale of alcohol because the research has shown, especially in Australia, that reducing alcohol selling hours reduces alcohol harm. And alcohol harm is what we now saw happening at the tavern and caused the deaths of so many children. And I would like to take this opportunity to convey our condolences to the families and communities that are affected. So what happens is national legislation that limits the selling hours, but the legislation provides for municipalities to extend those hours. And no, I would say that on the whole, 6 o'clock is a cut-off time. But municipalities have increased the hours uh, through their bylaws right up to 4 o'clock in the morning. And, so it's 24 hours around the clock.
Mm.
And
You
I
too.
recall by the Honorable Mandela is the right call at the right time, and it is now a educational process going forward, and the the legislation, for example, the national legislation doesn't allow the trading of alcohol near schools and churches and mosques. But municipalities have the powers to change that. So that right must be taken away from municipalities. And that is what the Honorable Mandela must pursue as a member of parliament and an influential member of the African National Congress and also the House
Undoubtedly.
of Mandela.
Mm.
Yes.
Undoubtedly, it is a very it's a needed action. It's the right call at the right time. However, you also referred to COVID restrictions. We do know what happened then. Yes, we had a lot of drunk drivers taken off the roads due to all of the lockdown restrictions. But undoubtedly, Hanif, I think that a lot of people stockpiled their liquor, for that lockdown time. Perhaps one of the reasons why we didn't have a high road death toll during lockdown was people would we'd like to think drinking responsibly at home in the safety of their homes. I'm not suggesting stockpiling drink at home. I am looking at the reality of the situation. So, if there is some sort of a ban or curfew on alcohol sales, people are going to stockpile. They will still possibly continue their drinking, but let's hope in the safety of their own homes. And if there is some sort of a total ban, we are going to open up the avenue for illicit alcohol trade. So there's so many variables and so many loopholes that one wonders if we're ever going to get over this big hurdle, this big challenge as far as alcohol trade and consumption is concerned.
Let me give you the problem that Ibrahim Rasool had when he was Premier of the Western Cape.
Mm,
So we know that in his heart of hearts and because of Islamic values, there's no way that he will promote the selling of alcohol, for example. But he signed in as the Premier, he authorized 50,000 taverns in the Western Cape. So you can imagine what pressure he was on to sign that.
absolutely.
And you can imagine what
Mm,
pressure the Honorable Mandela will have with regard to any restrictions on alcohol. So we also have to look at the farmers that will now have to change their vineyards and grow oranges, for example, or something else, or use the grapes for uh, 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 perfumes or I don't know what. Um, so it is going to be, it is a noble call, like I said, at the right time. But there's going to be pressure from the Stellenbosch mafia, who've made
mm,
trillions of
mm.
rands
Right.
selling alcohol. So we are in a losing situation, and so it will have to be a step by step approach going forward if the call is going to have any meeting. So what the House of Mandela should do is address the cultural aspect of, for example, beer making is a cultural thing. Most of the cultural practice amongst the causes, alcohol plays a very important role. So they may have to convince people to stop this beer making and maybe drink grape juice. I don't know.
Mm.
It is going to be a great challenge, and I can imagine that the call won't have much success because of decades of cultural beliefs, and we also have a situation that the government is promoting tourism. People are not going to come to South Africa if there's no wine. They,
Absolutely.
and the Minister of Public Works, when she was the mayor, and advocated, 24 hours drinking around the clock. I called her and the city of Cape Town and said, we don't want the city of Cape Town to be the drunk capital of the world. So you find
Absolutely.
that towns and the cities, in order to attract tourists, wants to make their metro or city
Mm.
the drunk metro, the drunk city of the world to attract tourists. So that is also another challenge.
Absolutely. I think we just need to really look at the whole situation, the system that's in place. Undoubtedly, as you rightly said, the Dopp system that was introduced back in the dark days of apartheid started this culture of drinking in the black communities, and it has just taken traction from there on. I think to be realistic, I don't think that there could be a total ban on beer making or on the alcohol industry. Once again, like you say, we'll be up against all sorts of mafias because this is a huge, huge, huge income generator for lots of communities, for lots of people right across the country, bar, alhamdulillah, the Muslim community. So it's going to be a one step at a time approach. I think perhaps awareness needs to start at school going level to make children understand the dangers of alcohol and also other illicit drugs. But very strong messages need to go out. And I'm not sure what's the situation like in the winelands of South Africa, but I do hope and pray that the DOP system has been completely eradicated. You can't be paying people their wages via the DOP system. That is why we have the problem we're sitting with today.
No, you are quite right, and it mustn't be a Muslim thing. So the House of Mandela, is a mixed house of different beliefs.
I do know that. I
Um,
am
so,
aware of that. Alhamdulillah, I am aware of that.
so the fact that there is diversity and it's not a Muslim call, will certainly get people to think that, if alcohol is causing so harm, there needs to be an alcohol reduction policy that starts from childhood, goes through the schools, and eventually that will set the state to eventually ban alcohol, which is the call of the
Mm.
Honorable Mandela. But even in a Muslim world, we find the Arabs now like drink wine and alcohol as well. They want to become the new drunkards of the world. So
Yes,
that's
we
the
are aware
challenge
of that as
from this
well.
point of view.
Yeah, unfortunately, sadly, astaghfirullah, we are aware of that as well. But again, I think it brings me back to your initial comments regarding lockdown, the COVID-19 lockdown. It does say a lot for the fact that for the one thing that just springs to mind is the road accident deaths were absolutely minimized. And I do attribute a lot of that to no drunken drivers on the road. So maybe government, Hanif, maybe you need to start thinking about proposals that you can present in parliament regarding some, further restrictions. I don't know, because now, since the restrictions have been, the lockdown has been eradicated, our accident rate has gone through the ceiling once again.
Yeah, look, there were the savings that the fiscus had as a result of that decision during COVID was tremendous. So the taxes benefit that we get from alcohol, I think if you do the numbers, the savings to the fiscus was much better. So the fiscus was prepared to lose the tax revenue from alcohol. And every year when the budget is presented, there's a lot of talk about beer prices going, taxes, beer
Sinful tax, yeah, the
doubling,
sin tax.
the sin taxes, yeah.
Yeah.
So the people argue that the country needs to see the sin taxes,
Mm.
but the savings that we had during COVID was tremendous. Like you yourself mentioned, that hospitals could now cope, and we don't now need to build more hospitals and have more staff. They have to work through the night. So there are definitely more advantages than disadvantages with regard to growing of grapes, which lead to the manufacture and bottling of alcohol. But I think for starters, there should only be one piece of legislation. There shouldn't be a national legislation, a provincial, and a municipal bylaws. There should be one piece of legislation, and the whole strategy should be the reduction of alcohol serving hours for starters. Because remember, these children didn't die at their homes; they
Mm,
died in
mm.
cabins.
Yep.
So if alcohol can't be sold, after 6 o'clock in the evenings, then you're quite right. Drinking will still take place. People will hoard wine and keep wine, but you won't have the situation that we had now with the tragic death of so many young lives. And
Absolutely.
so,
Mhm.
yeah, so I think
We,
one mustn't just
mm,
ignore the fall of the House of Mandela.
absolutely. Thank you indeed for your thoughts. Always nice talking with you. And let's hope and pray that, inshallah, there is more, weight that is put behind that this issue gains lots of traction, and we can then see some changes as far as the sale, or the restriction on alcohol sales, and obviously hours of these nightclubs and taverns being allowed to operate. So we look forward to that. Thank you once again. Salaam alaikum to you, Ganief Hendricks, president of Al Jama. Go well. It is 9:35 exactly.